Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today we have a very exciting update to my Ursarctic deck profile. So this is a really awesome deck which came out almost actually like a year ago, which is crazy. It's from Ancient Guardians, probably been about 10 months or so by now. So this is one of my just favorite decks to have come out of last year. It's still not really quite as powerful as we wish it would be, but I think with a little bit more support in the synchro department and then maybe like an extra searcher, this deck is actually really cool and could potentially be really strong in the future. The biggest downside to this deck is that it does end up using quite a bit of resources, using the Ursarctics in hand to tribute another level 7 or higher monster. However, you do end up mitigating some of that advantage loss with the new spell card, the Ursarctic Radiation, which we will get to in a second. But it really does help boost the power level of this deck. So anyways, let's get on into the profile. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And let's get on into it. So we have 3 copies here of the McPolar. Pretty standard. This is like your, kind of like the Stratos of the deck. So when this card gets special summoned by its, or not really owned by its own effect, just when this card gets special summoned, you can add 1 Ursarctic monster from your deck to your hand, which is really nice just to be able to either use its effect to get it on the field or by any other means. We do have a couple Monster Reborn effects in the deck, so if this is chilling in the graveyard, you can still bring it back. All of the Ursarctic monsters in the main deck have the condition that during the main phase, quick effect, you contribute another level 7 or higher monster to special summon this from your hand. So that is basically what the condition of all of these is going to be. All of the level 7s, which we are going through right now, they get their effect right away when they're summoned. The 8s need another Ursarctic to be on the field, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But then with the McBillis, when this card gets special summoned, you can special summon 1 Ursarctic from your hand, which is really handy. I'm sorry, that was not an intended pun, but really nice because if you can special summon this off, then you can get a level 8 onto your field, and then when you have a 7 and an 8, then that helps you go into your Polari, so this card is just necessary. All of these guys are run at 3. It's pretty standard, and there's just nobody that you really want to cut. So then we have the McTannis, which lets you add an Ursarctic from graveyard to hand. Then getting into the level 8s, we have the Mega Polar. This card is super good because when it gets special summoned, when you have an Ursarctic monster on the field, then you're able to pop a spell or trap. So it is really important to make sure that whenever you're using the level 8s, that you do have an Ursarctic on the field. Otherwise, their effects are not going to go off. So you can use these guys to disrupt your opponent during their turn. So you can like summon McPolar to search Mega Polar if your opponent has like really crucial spell or trap card. If a field spell is really crucial, like Magic Meltdown, you can search for this guy, special summon it, and then if you have that level 7 monster on the field, then you do get that pop effect off. The only reason why I don't usually like to do this during my opponent's turn is because of like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. So if you do notice people playing it, especially with like the Albaz structure deck coming out soon. So if your opponent is playing Dragoon, do not do any of the Ursarctic effects during your opponent's turn unless absolutely necessary, because with that, you like special summon these guys, and then your opponent can just burn you for like 2,500 and like 700 damage or even more. So that's just one big interaction that I've come into just to take note of. Like if your opponent's playing Dragoon, don't activate these effects during their turn. Then we have the Mega Billis, which allows you to target a card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. Kind of like a little DD Crow effect, which is super cool. Again, this is quick effect, so like if your opponent activates Monster Reborn, targets monster in graveyard, you can quick special summon this to the field, and then you can banish, which is really cool. Then we have our Book of Moon for the deck, the Mega Tannis. Then getting on into some just generic removal stuff, we have 2 copies of Lava Golem. A lot of the boards nowadays are setting up monsters that have 2 to 3 monsters that are really important. Like if your opponent is setting up a Scythe Lock, they're going to have DPE and then maybe something else on the field. So you can always Lava Golem, especially if they do like the DPE Scythe thing, then they're going to have Scythe on the field and or DPE. And then you just do something else. Then we have the Kaiju, the Sea Turtle. The only reason why I'm not playing like Raw Sphere mode is because I just don't want to get locked into a position where my opponent has 3 cards on the field and then I can't get over, or they only have 2 cards. So I always want to have Lava Golem and the Kaiju. If your opponent starts getting a little sus because of the Lava Golem, that either means that they'll just end on one monster, which is cool, or you just swap around these guys and then go into Kaijus in your side deck, which is really cool. Then they just end with like an Appaloosa or again like that DPE, and then you just tribute it. It's just so good. Then getting on into the main card, the Ursarctic Radiation. This card is absolutely insane because yes, this card is a draw 7 for the deck. because when you activate this card, you place 7 counters on it, and then each time an Ursarctic monster is special summoned from your hand or extra deck, you can remove a counter from this card in order to draw 1 card, and you can actually get this effect off every, you can get all 7 counters off of this in 1 single turn, and it's like the draw effect is not once per turn, so it's really, really crazy. You can only have 1 of these on the field, so I can see why you would only want to play maybe like 1 or 2 of this card, but it is just really important to see this in your opening hand, because if you do open this, you're going to have such a huge advantage. And then you can just discard, if you end up having 2 of these in your hand, you can just discard the extra one for this next card that we have, which is the Ursarctic Departure, because with this card you can discard 1 card to add 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hand, and then also you can use this card to banish from your graveyard as a tribute substitution for any of these guys. The only thing is that you can't use that the turn that this hits the graveyard, so it is still really cool to be able to, you can like discard an Ursarctic monster to graveyard, but generally I tried to just save the discard for extra Ursartic Radiations, which is really nice. Then we have our Monster Reborn for the deck, which is 2 copies of Ursarctic Slider, just super duper nice to be able to quick effect, get somebody back. 2 copies of the Big Dipper. If you want, you can play 1 copy of this, but sometimes it is just really nice to have this card on field. If you open with this card, once per turn, if your Ursarctic monster would tribute a monster to activate its effect, you can just banish a monster from your graveyard instead. So if you end up going into 2 Polaris, it's nice to have 2 of these in deck, or if you just end up drawing this in your opening, it's really nice because it just helps you to substitute one of those tributes. 2 copies of Dark Ruler No More. This is similar to my previous build. I just don't want to play multiple copies of, or too many copies of Dark Ruler No More, because we don't want to brick. So if we're running this Ursarctic Radiation, that means that we're going to be drawing through the deck a whole lot, and we don't want to run into like 3 copies of this card, so playing it at 2 is perfectly fine. Then to some draw cards, we have 1 copy of Pot of Desires, 1 copy of Upstart Goblin, 1 copy of Pinpoint Landing. Pinpoint Landing is super nice for this deck, because again, you can still special summon during your opponent's turn, as long as it is optimal. And then if you have the effect of your, no, sorry, 1 second. Yeah, I got to double check here. So Pinpoint Landing says that if your monster is special summoned from your hand to your field, so actually your Ursarctic Slider does not work with Pinpoint Landing during your turn because that's from the graveyard, but still it is super nice with the Pinpoint Landing. Special summoning from the hand, get to draw 1 card, so it's basically like an Upstart Goblin on steroids because you can use it every single turn. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, just again to get something back from the graveyard, just really helps us to just keep our plays going. 1 copy of Regeki just for a generic board wipe. If you want to play more copies of this, go ahead, but I think that with the lava golems and stuff, the Regeki is actually a little bit underpowered, so I think just 1 copy is fine. 1 copy of Call by the Grave, and then 1 copy of the Quint Charge. I still really like this card for the grind games. It's really, really nice. You guys might also notice that I dropped out the fusion package with the Ursarctic Drytron card. I just found that I was bricking a little bit too much with that stuff, so like I would end up drawing like all of the combo pieces or none of them. So really, I just felt like keeping the Big Dipper in here and then not playing the Ursarctic spell card, which lets you fusion summon. Honestly, that fusion card just doesn't get you enough advantage. So then we're going to go on into 3 copies of the Ursartic Polari. This card is really, really great for the deck because you use this card, you synchro into this with your 7 and your 8. Then you get to activate your Big Dipper directly from the deck, which is really cool. And then also this card can get you another monster summoned from your hand or graveyard, which is really cool, just by attributing another monster from your hand. Or sorry, it special summons from the graveyard by attributing a monster from your hand or field, which is just still really, really nice, just to be able to get an extra monster, and then that helps you to go into your 7s. So we have the Grand Chariot, 2 of those copies, and then 2 copies of the Septetrions. So these are the your synchros that you're really trying to go into. So this card lets you blow up 2 cards when it's summoned, and then also gives you guys some protection. And then the Septetrion is kind of like the Necroz, where it helps negate all of your opponent's extra deck monsters, unless they have a level, which is a little bit of a downside, but it kind of just plays around with the gimmick of this deck, that this deck just likes summoning synchros or things with levels, and it also now has the fusion. So if your opponent is still going into Lynx or XZs, though, this card is going to help to negate them. But that's going to be it for all of the Ursarctic cards. Another good thing to note about this, though, is that With this card, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can add one Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand, which is nice because this is really your only way to search for your Ursarctic Radiation, which is a little bit of a bummer. Hopefully we will end up getting another monster or a spell card that does help us to search for a Ursarctic spell or trap card, so then we can get that radiation. That would be really, really cool. For our links, we're just playing some generic links. Our Link Karibo and Anima, in case our opponent ends up like hitting us with like an imperm or something when we go into the Polari. Sometimes you just need an extra move. So the Anima and Link Karibo. Anima was a toss in here when I got rid of the fusion monster. It's just kind of a nice inclusion. We have our 1 copy of IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Unicorn, 1 BLS Soldier of Chaos. If you can't afford this, this is really not required for the deck. 1 copy of the Crusadia Evermax, and then 1 copy of Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. Again, you're not going to be link summoning every single duel, but it's just nice to have these options in here, and you really, really don't need to be playing more than your 3 copies of this and then your 2 copies of these guys. So overall, I think that these are the right ratios, and you guys can just fill up the extra deck with whatever links or XZs or whatever you guys want to. So anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it for this deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one was really fun to pick back up, especially with the new Ursarctic Radiation. Anytime you get new support that lets you draw 7 cards, you kind of have to reevaluate the deck and try some things out. So I really like this. I like this version without the fusion card. It just seemed a little bit stronger, and that the fusion doesn't really get you much advantage. But if you guys want to splash that in, you guys totally can. But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, and we will catch you guys for the next one. Peace.